a playlist original.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster Presents Deep Dives with Owen and Gaius, episode 7. I'm getting, every time I do the intro for this, because I have to do the intro for both shows, I always think I'm gonna fuck up and say like with your host like Gaius and Jackson, and be like, nope, that's the wrong one.
Yeah.
I have to like consciously like think about it and not mess it up. But yes, this is the other show, the spinoff. Yeah, episode 7. It's finally your pick this week.
Finally, my pick.
Very divisive episode 6.
Yeah, no, it was a good episode 6. I loved the controversy and the discussion that it provoked. So I think it was a good pick.
Yeah, it actually carried on throughout when I have to like promote the episode on like the off week. Like I felt like validated in the beginning because some people were commenting on it, like, "Oh, like that movie's underrated. I love that movie." But then I would start doing like the stories and polls, and then it was like not so much on my side. Like more like
I saw
more
that.
like
I saw a little bit of
more like in the middle.
Yeah, there were some that were 50-50, and then the most recent one that I voted for myself, obviously. I was in the lead, so I definitely chalked up a win for that one, maybe.
Yeah, and it's funny too because like this guy JC, he's a Merc with the movies on Instagram. We were talking, but he likes the movie. But when I put the poll up about Dane Cook, he didn't even vote yet. He just sent me a message that was like, "Oh, that role is like really miscast." And I was like, "Shut up!"
Yeah,
like he likes the movie though.
Yeah,
but yeah, we're coming off this is day 2 of us recording. You
Yeah.
got to record with Jackson for the first time on the main show. So people are going to hear you twice this week.
No, I'm excited. It was great. It was great to meet Jackson in person, or I guess in virtual person for the first time, which was great. And I mean, I've been trying to get on the main show for a while. He picked a great avenue for me to be able to do that with doing it with John Wick. Talked about some of the great news things that are kind of coming out recently and some hot topics. And so it felt great to be back on the regular show. And I mean, the chemistry was there, and it's good to feel like I was part of that main show. And it was just great. It was just great conversation.
Yeah, and like you said, when you're like prepped on the news, you're like fine with it. If you're like, hey, just tell me what it is beforehand, I can like look it up real quick and like have a conversation about it. But yeah, we had some good topics at the beginning. We kind of got right into it at the start. We didn't really go over any watches because we knew we had a lot to talk about. So I guess I will do that here. Have you watched anything fairly recently that you think is noteworthy or that you wanted to kind of bring up?
Well, I was trying to think about it, what I watched over the weekend, and I think that I didn't really watch too much over the weekend. It was St. Patrick's Day, so had more of a sort of social aspect to the weekend, mostly just hanging out with people and trying to just kind of like stay connected that way. So I didn't really watch anything, but I know that I was really excited for John Wick. So I did see the second one again, which is my favorite one. So it's just one of those ones that I continue to return to. It's got great action, and you guys have to listen to the episode we just did in order to kind of hear my feedback on why it's so influential and everything. So definitely love seeing that. But besides that, I will say I haven't really, I'm kind of in the middle of some, like, I don't want to say writer's block, but it's kind of like I watched the first half of The Last of Us, but I haven't like had that sort of spark to go back and finish
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel like I started, like I talked about a couple weeks ago, started Ted Lasso, still haven't finished season 2. So I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of all of these ones where I don't feel like it's like just, it's really grabbed my attention in order for me to just like jump back and completely finish the series with.
I was gonna ask, like, is that an issue of like it's not like good enough? Do you think to kind of wrap up, or does it like it like with The Last of Us? I haven't finished it either. I have like 2 episodes left, and I could have easily watched those last 2, and I haven't yet. Not that I think it's a bad show; it's good. But yeah, I've kind of had that kind of thing with that show. I tried to start watching like Yellow Jackets because I heard that was really good. I started it and didn't finish it. Yep. So kind of the same boat with certain shows, especially when people are like raving about them. Like, all right, I guess I like when people rave about something. I guess I'm like, all right, I want to be like all in. I need to finish this right now. I mean, this is not the best example, but like the first time I watched Euphoria, I was like, I'm gonna watch like 1 episode and go to bed, and then I ended up binging the entire like first season, and it was like 4 a.m. So I mean, sometimes the show has to grab me like that to want to like keep going. with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if it's just the fatigue that we've kind of seen now with just a plethora of so many shows out there.
Yeah,
But I mean, I was literally just hanging out with some friends this weekend and they were talking about the making of The Last of Us, which is like the behind
yeah,
the scenes stuff after they've seen the whole episode or the whole series. And
yeah,
I haven't gotten that far yet. So it's like it's one of those things where I like the show, just like you were saying, but I think
yeah.
that there's just one of those things. It's one of those like ideas where maybe the hour-long episode can just sometimes be a little bit too much,
So
especially if you are leading a busy life and you have some stuff that you got some stuff planned over the weekend. Sometimes, like, I don't know, an hour and 10 minutes can just be hard to set aside for something and you really want to pay
yeah,
attention to. So it really depends on sort of your ability to stay focused with it. But I do
yeah,
like the show. I think that the episode with Nick Offerman was amazing.
yeah. It was really good.
But it just had like it hasn't had that sort of oh my god. Like I think maybe it was the last like you know how they do the preview for the next episode, like what's
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
next. That one didn't like
You're like,
grab
nope.
me so much. Like I think the one that I'm stuck on is when they get to Wyoming and he meets his brother. And that reunion didn't feel special enough for me because I mean, we only kind of met his brother like kind of briefly in the first episode and so that sort of relationship and the reasoning for him to be so close with him, I know it's going to be developed in that episode, but
Yeah,
it wasn't one of those things that just completely grabbed
completely
me for
grabbed
me
you.
to yeah. So, I guess
Yeah, I
that's
feel
kind of
you.
where I'm at.
Yeah, because like I have that finale. I sit on here. I've been watching Wolfpack because Sarah Michelle Gellar's on that, and that finale dropped like last week, and I still haven't watched that either. I think with that show though, I really want to hear about a season 2 renewal before I get like invested in like
Invested? Yeah.
what the finale is gonna be, especially if the finale is like from what I heard, there's like it's kind of open ended to like lead to something else. Since Sarah Michelle Gellar is a producer on it, she said the numbers are good, so she can see that. But they're waiting to hear from Paramount Plus, so they're gonna get picked up. And I don't know. I've been burned before when shows get canceled, and I need to know if I need to finish it,
Yeah.
in a way that at least I would know, like, okay, at least there's something more coming.
Yeah.
Um, so they've been chilling on the back burner, just waiting for me to
Gosh,
watch
yeah,
it.
waiting for it.
Yeah,
So it's funny. I literally just remembered this, and maybe this says like it speaks to the movie itself. But I did
yeah.
watch Black Panther: Wakanda Forever because
Oh, yeah,
I texted you about it,
yeah, about that. Yeah,
and so
yeah.
I did. That was one that I watched this last week, and yeah, mixed feelings on it. It just it felt forced, and it felt like one of the reasons that I didn't get into the DC stuff is because the super human aspect of it, especially when it came to the action, was so overpowered and dramatic that it didn't
Like
feel
fantastical a bit. It's like
yeah,
too over the top.
exactly. Like when Superman and Zod are fighting and they're punching each other miles and miles apart through buildings, like that's
Yeah,
kind of how it felt with some of the action in Wakanda and the
yeah.
slow-mo, man. I was not a fan of the
That's
slow motion.
still been going on, man. They can't. I don't know why that hasn't stopped. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like I think if I was 14, 15, I would think that was a cool like effect to like have
Yeah.
slow mo like action, but like everyone does it so much now, and it's so repetitive and not that good. And that movie
Mhm.
did have a lot of it.
Yeah, a lot.
And I agree with you too. That movie had a lot of like fight stuff that seemed like because so much of that movie is grounded in like realism, at least like real human emotion, and then it kind of turns into like a typical like superhero like comic book movie.
Mhm.
Like I think I told you I was torn when I first saw it. When I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is good," and then I watched it again, and I felt like it was like two movies kind of fighting with each other. And I know that had a lot to do with like, oh, we have to pay respect to like Chadwick Boseman and wrap that up because we can't
Yeah.
just rush it. But then we also have to tell this new story and of course set up all these new characters and
Mhm.
because there's going to be like TV shows and movies and like that's why the movie's almost 3 hours long and
I know.
you feel it. You definitely feel it. Some good acting though from a lot of people in it.
Very much so. And
Yeah,
I think we were kind of texting about this too, but the amount of setup that Marvel has to kind of do now, like the whole story between I guess it's the director, Julia Louis-Dreyfus,
yeah,
and yeah, and like that kind of story mixed with like the UN when they were trying to steal vibranium and like that kind of opening scene, like that all felt it didn't feel like it was important at all. It just was kind of like, oh, they were in the first one and now we need to kind of tie them in order to progress these shows that are going to be later,
yeah.
which is just it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
And for someone who just has consistently loved the movies, watched the first couple shows, Loki, Winter Soldier, and Wanda,
Yeah,
like now it's so much to keep up with, and I think that
it's way too much.
it's really starting to hit me.
It's like it's a pure oversaturation at this point. I think I text you. I wish like they wouldn't just connect the shows to any of the. I wish they were their own kind of entity a bit, and I could enjoy them a lot more if I didn't have to like oh, is this going to be connected to another film or like that's a lot of work for for if you're just casually watching these things. Like I shouldn't have to just like watch the TV show to be up to speed when I go see a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Like and I don't think that makes us lazy viewers. I just think that makes a lot of sense. There's not a lot of time in the day sometimes to just like catch up on Moon Knight,
exactly,
so you can see what's going on next.
Yeah, especially when some of these shows haven't really been received super well. Sometimes,
and they
back and forth. Like they're not bad, but they're all just kind of like, yeah, it's there, and I'm not gonna sit down and invest 8 or 9 episodes of 40 minutes for something that's just like bleh.
Yeah. Well, dude, when I saw Black Panther Wakanda Forever in the theater, it was a packed theater, and this black couple was behind us. And when Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Martin Freeman came on screen, all I heard in the back was like, "Oh, there's some white people in this." I was like, Jesus.
Oh, that's great.
Just some tokens. Yeah.
I mean, he was that.
He wasn't the last one too. Yeah. He was the only one there.
I think good job. His American accent is pretty convincing.
Accent is legit, because like I would totally forget that guy is he's British, right? In real life. So would totally forgot about that. But yeah, I can understand. And that was a lot of movie too. I mean, just a lot going on. I think they got the emotion right. It's just like everything they tried to fit in was just a little too much.
To be honest, I kind of once Nando, I think it was, or
Neymar, the fish guy.
Neymar is like a soccer player.
Namor,
Namor, whatever it is. Once he like died, and like I just thought it's just kind of cheesy. Like they he didn't really die, and they came together. It's like, oh, let's band together and let's stop this fighting. But didn't like a bunch of their warriors get murdered? Like
she let him live, and like I mean, I know like she's the hero and she has to rise above, but he basically murdered her mother. So like I was like, the fact that
he actively did that,
murdered her mother, and I was like, and she let that go. I was like, all right.
Yeah. But then that happened, and I checked the time. There was like 40 minutes left, and I was like, dude, I don't have the patience for this. And I probably got through another 10, 15 minutes, and then I was out.
You're like, I'm done.
Yeah, I was like, what else more do they need to tell us here?
You got the gist of it.
Yeah, but it was fine. Just didn't grab me at all. And I forgot that I even saw it. So
damn.
Yeah,
that's a good harsh. I forgot I even watched it.
That's not necessarily. It's not a good sign.
It's not a winning endorsement. So I'll go through these quick. I rewatched Spring Breakers again because we're doing an episode for its 10th anniversary.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
On the other. Yes, I did, because we're doing an episode on it. So Jackson, when he first saw this, apparently didn't like it. So he rewatched it. So it'll be interesting to talk about, because he hasn't told me if he enjoyed it more second time around.
I know you like this movie.
I do love this movie. It's so good. I guess
2 reasons: Selena Gomez and what's her name?
Vanessa Hudgens.
Vanessa Hudgens, yeah.
That's part of it.
Part of it, yeah.
But you know what? I love the way like it's shot, and like I mean, it's one of those things where it's like it's one of those movies where it makes you feel like you're kind of in that environment and like you're living whatever lifestyle they're living. It's like a whole movie feels like a haze, and it feels like you're in their kind of state of mind.
It does make you feel like you're on drugs.
Yeah, I mean, and if that's the point, then so be it.
Yeah.
And then you know what? This is when we still kind of like James Franco. I thought he was pretty good in that role, kind of poking fun at like Riff Raff a bit. Like I mean that's who
100%.
That's who that character is based on.
Yeah.
But I can understand why it's not for everyone.
Has he been officially canceled, James Franco? Like, is he?
Oh, he did. Yeah, I mean,
he's been ingrained in Hollywood for enough time where I feel like people have kind of like they have their opinions about him, but he's still going to get cast.
Yeah, I don't think he's totally out. I mean, I don't think he is as big as he used to be. Like, definitely not like the Spider-Man days, but or even because I know Seth Rogen hasn't worked with him in a while either, and said that he probably won't anytime soon. Like,
Seth Rogen's sexual misconduct, correct? So, like,
and
and
of course he has his like his version of what happened, and he
Yeah.
admits that he was a slime ball and that he's better now, and he's like, I think he has like a long-term girlfriend or he's engaged, something like that. He said it's completely
The only thing I can think of with a long-term girlfriend is when he married his pillow in 30 Rock.
Oh god.
And so that's the only thing I can think of as who his long-term girlfriend would actually be.
Who could tolerate him, and I think that's it. Yeah, and in that same interview about having a new girlfriend or whoever he was with now, he said this is the first girl he's never cheated on, as if it was like a
Good thing.
the good thing. Like, okay, cool, man, you finally didn't cheat on someone.
Bro.
But it's hard, man. I hate when that happens to people like him because he's super talented. But at least we got his brother. I mean, his brother hasn't done anything wrong. Everyone
Dave,
they
he's a
break up.
gem.
Yeah. And then I also had to rewatch Wild Things, because that 25th anniversary actually happened yesterday, but we're going to record an episode for that. Have you ever seen that movie?
I've seen it.
It's very, like, it came out like 98, 99. Nev Campbell and Denise. This is when Denise Richards like first came on the scene.
Is this her like pool scene that's super
Yeah,
famous?
yeah.
Yeah.
There's like
I've seen
there's
that.
like the only thing you've seen.
No.
There's like, and then their whole, like, it was a big deal like when we were younger, because I remember when we went to go see it, we convinced our friends' parents to take us to go.
Oh god.
And then there's like the threesome thing happens, and then two girls making out in the pool, and there's a ton of fucking nudity. I think it's tame by today's standards, like watching it again.
Yeah.
But back then it was like a huge deal for
The
that.
parents were thinking, where did they drag us to?
Especially for someone like Nev Campbell at the time, who had never done anything like that. Like, she was
Yeah.
like this innocent, and it's put this on Instagram. It took me years to realize that movie's actually good and not just like a source of like eye candy. Like,
Yeah.
years, it took years and years to be like, oh yeah, the twists are pretty good. I never really paid
Nice.
attention to like the story for a while.
Most people didn't.
But most people didn't. But looking at it today, I think it holds up pretty well. So it'll be a fun one. And Jackson's never seen it, so that'll be
Nice.
an interesting one for us to talk about. But yeah, I got those in. Similar-ish movies though, the Spring Breakers and Wild Things.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about your parents, going to see that with your parents. I saw This Is the End with my parents in the theater.
Oh.
And the scene when Jonah Hill gets raped by the demon just did not sit well. I'm sitting like directly next to my mom, like quietly laughing my ass off, but I can't like really vocalize anything. And I mean, I don't know if they liked it or not, but they were pretty silent for most of it.
I think the worst thing I've ever saw. So this is like 2002, so I was like 16 or 17. We're like, all right, going to the movies with my mom. You can pick the movie. She picked Unfaithful. I didn't know much about that, at first. But if you've seen it, this is Diane Lane, and she's cheating on her husband, played by Richard Gere. There's just a lot of sex, and not just like sex. Like, she's getting railed over like the banister and her like in her apartment complex. She has sex in the coffee house bathroom. There's like a lot of stuff going on, and I just remember just trying to look straight ahead and like not focus on anything else. And another movie that took me a while to like appreciate, because I was like, I can't appreciate this.
I can't appreciate that. It was too awkward.
Yeah, it's way too awkward. Like, we didn't even talk after we left the movie.
I can't imagine what the car ride home was like after.
Did you like it? Yeah, it's good. That was about it.
Yeah,
it was good. Nothing else. And then, of course, I watched today what we're going to deep dive into.
Same.
Which is your pick, and it was a really fun one.
My pick, and this is one that just a movie that I have enjoyed for years now. I was too young to see it in theaters because I was 3 at the time. So, but I chose Dogma, which is a Kevin Smith movie that came out November 12th, 1999. Produced by Scott Mosier and Jonathan Gordon. Budget was $10 million. I don't have the total box office numbers.
$44 million worldwide, $30 million here. So it turned a profit. I think it's his.
Nice,
I think it's his highest grossing movie from his like View Askewniverse films. It's still his highest grossing movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and the View Askew, I mean, even just the beginning was funny, but it has an incredibly star-studded cast. Obviously, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck. We got Alan Rickman, Kevin Smith, and Jason Mewes as Jay and Silent Bob. Jason Lee plays an incredible role. Chris Rock, Salma Hayek. We got a little bit of George Carlin in there. And yeah, it was just a great movie that I've enjoyed for a long time. And I think it was because I wasn't raised Catholic, but I was raised Christian. And so all those values and stories and everything have is something that I grew up with. So to see it in certain lights like this and to have some of those ideals definitely satirized was
Yeah.
something that immediately struck with me. And I love seeing Ben Affleck and Matt Damon kind of act their chops off.
This
Well,
is like some of their best stuff, I think.
it's so good.
It's
I
really
don't know
good.
what it is, but their interaction with the first half of the movie, when they're
Yeah.
kind of like just even the first scene,
Yeah,
and
I love
then
that scene
Ben
too.
Affleck's monologue at the end, like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, man, like it is some of those like just this is back with Chase and Amy days, and I think he really pulls a lot of the good stuff out of him. The writing's really, really good, even how ridiculous and kind of comedic it's supposed to be. The writing's really good when it comes down to it.
Yeah. I love the this is I when you suggested this movie, I think I told you like this is my favorite Kevin Smith movie, and I also think this is kind of where he peaks. Like I do enjoy Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, that came after, but like it's not as smart. Like as I
No.
mean, he had a good run, Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, and then
Mhm.
this. And I mean, 4 movies in a row when you're an independent filmmaker that are this good is a feat in itself. But like,
Yeah.
I feel like all of his creative mojo got like this was the last of it. And I know a lot of people that actually listen to this are big fans of his, so it's not meant to be like a entire diss. I mean, I just think that like this is kind of like this was his sweet spot,
Yeah.
and
Definitely. He
he
hit
really is
his
riding
stride.
his ass off with this. I mean, like this really good dialogue, really good. Even there's even like even though there's a lot of comedy, there's also really good genuine moments in it too. We've
Yeah.
talked about that in like these comedies as well. Yeah, I saw it. I did see it in theaters when it came out, but even I mean, I was of course older than you. Like I think it was like 14 or 15, I think. And but I appreciated what was funny like in the moment, but definitely didn't appreciate it until way later as far as like the stuff it was poking fun at and
Yeah.
turn especially with in regards to religion, which actually made the movie like a huge target when it
Of course.
when it was first
By Catholics.
yeah when it first came out. You know it but and it's funny too because Kevin Smith is a Catholic, he was raised Catholic, and that's why he's like this is not like he's always said this wasn't meant to be like any hate gears toward it, like because you could tell in some of the script there's a lot of love for it. It just kind of brings out these questions of like what is right about it and what is kind of like a little wrong about it in certain aspects. And he's able to see both sides of it because he was raised that way, but also is smart enough to have like a mind of his own. And I think
Yeah.
that's why he's able to write something as good as this. I think too like having the cast that he had, they all just kind of bring their A game. Like almost,
They
I mean,
really do.
every single, like
Alan Rickman, man. How does he
yeah,
just pulls it out of nowhere?
even the smallest of roles, like it's just so like. Now Linda Fiorentino, who plays the female lead in this, like I like her. It's interesting because like I mean, you talk about it later, but I guess there was a lot of issues when they were filming the movie with her. Like
Really?
she didn't particularly get along with like they said there were days that she wouldn't even talk to Kevin Smith, like and
Well, I mean, she has to act with fucking Jason Mewes, who is
that is part of the
that
problem.
it
I think
has
that's
to, I mean, first of all, this was probably when he was like deep in his heroin days. Like
yeah,
he
it
had
really
a lot
was.
of drug problems. And I mean, like the first half of the movie, all he's doing is talking about how he wants to fuck her. And it's like, all right, like this, it's definitely not like
You know what you signed up for. I mean,
it's not subtle. It's very in your face about it.
true. I mean,
So
like,
I can
yeah,
understand that why she had some issues.
I think that was part of the like I think he was saying that like she felt that compared to some of her co-stars, and he would name who that she might have been like in another league, and I think
Mhm.
he's a good example of that. Even though he's hilarious, I mean, yeah, he's it's a one note character, and he's played it for a long time, but like the delivery
Kills
is
it.
always
Kills it.
really fucking great.
Well,
But yeah, for
also
people,
good to Kevin Smith to write these movies and give himself no lines, and all he has to
yeah,
do is sit there and just
react.
like have no. And like, I mean, those rants that Jay goes on, it cannot
They're
be
so
something
good.
easy to memorize.
I
Like,
know.
there has to be a lot of improvisation where they just kind of say, talk about this topic and say the F word a lot and talk
Yeah,
about some dirty stuff
yeah,
because there's no way that I mean, he has probably 40% of all the lines in the movie.
yeah. So for people that don't know, Dogma follows an abortion clinic worker with a special heritage that is called upon to save the existence of humanity from being negated by two renegade angels trying to exploit a loophole and re-enter heaven. Our two renegade angels are played by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. We
Matt
mentioned,
Damon.
yeah, Loki and was it Bart? Oh my God, why am I blanking on Ben Affleck's
Bartleby.
Bartleby? Yeah.
Yeah.
We mentioned this earlier. I kind of forget what young Matt Damon and young Ben Affleck were like until I rewatched something with them in it. And
Really
you
good.
can actually really good, and you can also tell that these are two best friends. They know each other really well in real life. They know how to riff off each other. I loved all their scenes together, even like opening the scene before the title card comes up, like
Yeah.
that whole bit of like dialogue between like
Him
it's so
convincing a
good.
nun to renounce her faith.
Faith, yeah, it's so good. Like it's so on point, and of course, like Ben Affleck, you know, he worked with Kevin Smith before, so he knows his language and all that
Yeah.
really well. But yeah, like you know what you're getting into, like after that, like pretty much during that opening with them, which I think like you know, I had a lot of favorite moments in it, but like to open the movie like that, like out the gate, we're like, all right, I know exactly what we're in for, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be a little controversial as well. But
Yeah, well, they do that with the opening sort of like writing on there. They're like, "Hey, this is completely satirical.
oh yeah, that
Please
was
don't take
funny.
this. Please don't take this. Like, God has a sense of humor." I mean, look at the platypus. Right afterwards, they say,
Yeah,
"Sorry to all platypus lovers. Like, we're not trying. Don't come at us again." Like, they even joke about the whole thing with themselves.
yeah,
But I really think that even just like you said in the first scene, it shows to me why Ben Affleck and Matt Damon became famous because they are incredible actors.
yeah.
But it just, I don't know if they lost it or they just kind of like sold out or Ben Affleck got boring and pretentious and cynical. But like it seems like they're having fun and doing it well in movies like this. And I
Yeah,
don't really see that much more from it. I mean, the Bourne series, like we talked about actually on the other show,
yeah,
like Matt Damon's great in that, but it's not the same kind of acting as something like this and with dialogue heavy. And
yeah.
it's great to see that in things like this.
I feel like you know they were riding off that high from like Good Will Hunting, and they still
Mhm.
had that kind of energy too. By the time they got to this, and I will say I think Matt Damon in the beginning had a, and maybe still does. I'd be up for a debate. Had a better acting career as far
Yeah,
as like maybe
I would say so.
choosing better roles. I think Ben Affleck had a period where everyone can agree that he had like a lull and like it was but yeah, that was like the one thing I noticed about watching this today is that like it was refreshing to kind of see them like have that much energy and that kind of like they kind of owned like
Camaraderie.
camaraderie, like every moment that they had together. And then you could just tell when someone knows each other really well. Like it almost felt like they weren't acting that much; they were just kind of like, like we were
Yeah,
like finishing
well,
their
like
sentences. Like,
the scenes when Ben Affleck's kind of making fun of Matt Damon, he's like, "Well, hey, fuck you, man! Like, I did
yeah,
what I did." Like those kind of things seem like an actual friendship where they probably took something that was real and they're just joking about it in real life. It was great.
yeah. And I love the dialogue where Loki's just like, last 4 days on Earth. If I had to dick, I go get laid. We could
Yeah,
do the next best thing. And he's like, what's that? Well, let's kill people. And that girl like
the
spits
girl
out the
spits. She's
water.
like, "Not
Hey, not
you."
you. The way he drops that line is so
It's
good.
so good. The Dogma.
No,
It's
yeah,
so
it's
good.
so good.
So
Um,
good.
so what are your thoughts on? No, I brought her up. Linda Fiorentino, who plays Beth. Like, what are you thoughts of her as a character? Like, were you invested in her? Like, as we, I mean, we have to go through this whole journey pretty much with her,
Yeah,
and her having to accept, you know, her destiny and all that.
yeah,
I've had friends who, and I think it's just her acting style, but I don't know. I think this is how the role was kind of written.
hmm,
Like, where I've had some friends that say that, well, it seems like she seems uninterested. And I used to
yeah,
like think that was like the behind the scenes stuff. Like maybe she wasn't, but then there's moments where she is completely invested. I think,
yeah.
especially as the movie goes along. I just think that's kind of how I think it's a mix of her acting style and just how the character was written by Kevin
Yeah,
Smith.
I think that she does a good job playing a Catholic who's trying to stay interested. But I mean, she even says it too. Church is a time when I balance my checkbook.
Look, yeah,
And that I think it was a character that was written to seem uninterested in like she's a divorcee whose husband left her because she couldn't bear children.
yeah,
And so like she's probably not happy all the time and like happy go lucky being an interesting person kind of going around. She works in an abortion clinic where she's constantly harassed
yeah,
and tries to go to church to make herself feel like a good person, but it's not working. Like she even says when she renounced her faith. And so I can kind of understand her disbelief and everything, and like when she kind of sees the hilarious side of what the religion is like from this perspective, obviously not what it might really be, whatever it is, but
Right.
when she sees it from that perspective where it's like, oh, you're an angel, like prove it. Like she doesn't really believe anything, and
Yeah.
so like, oh, these are prophets, they can't be prophets. Oh, you're an apostle, never heard about you. Like
Yeah.
there's just all these things where I can see her point of view. I think she does a great job, and I mean, the action is the only thing in this movie that is very subpar, where
Yeah.
it's very slapstick, and I don't know if that's done for a reason, but I mean that's the only time where I can not really a fan of sort of
What
what
they were
she
doing.
did, yeah, what they were doing
Yeah.
or what she was doing in that sense. But
Yeah.
it sucks. The only I don't think she has the best lines in the movie, so
She doesn't.
it sucks. Like she's the main character, but her best contribution is basically questioning everything as like an audience member. So she's
Yeah.
kind of like us in the movie. So it's like
Yeah.
her
I can see that.
contribution isn't really the thing that continues to draw me back to the movie, which is Matt Damon, Jane Silent Bob, Ben Affleck, like the story of it all. But her is just kind of like me in the movie.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's a great contribution, but it doesn't mean that she's the best part of it.
Yeah. I can agree with that. When I was watching it today, like moments later in the movie where I was like, all right, I'm really picking up what she's putting down. Like she was like, well, there's one scene later that I'll talk about that. That's like my favorite moment in the movie, between her and Ben Affleck. I thought she was really good in. But yeah, I think it is a combination of like, I think she is written to be us, to be like the voice of the audience. And then like, because we're learning and finding out these things as she's learning and finding them
Yeah.
out. And then it's all about like her figuring out, how to believe it and if it is believable, and questioning her faith and all that stuff. Like, yeah, it's not an easy part, and it's not the most engaging role, especially
Yeah.
when you're surrounded by so many big personalities.
Yeah, and
in this
huge
movie,
names.
huge names, and like, I love when she does meet Jane and Silent Bob, and like she comes to the realization like these are the prophets that like they were talking about.
God, it's just so vulgar.
It is vulgar, and it's funny because they are the connective tissue through these like connected movies, right?
Yeah.
And kudos to Kevin Smith for making their inclusion in this one in particular like work, because
Yeah.
it makes more sense in the other ones. Like you could see those characters interacting more, but in this kind of more like fantastical kind of plot, like you have to be like, all right, I don't know how they're gonna fit, but he makes it work, and like they don't seem out of place. And I love like line deliveries from like Jason Mewes, and then just Kevin Smith reacting, which is always surprisingly really funny.
Yeah.
Like
I feel like
really
the first time
enjoyed
I watched it, I was looking at Kevin Smith more and seeing his reactions. This
Right.
time around, I feel like I barely focused on him at all. And I
Okay.
don't know if that was just because I knew what his reactions were, because a lot of it is just facial expressions, obviously. He doesn't really say
Yeah.
anything except he has one line in the whole movie, or two.
Yeah.
And so like I actually focused a lot more on sort of everything else that was going on. But
Yeah.
I love the reason that they're in Illinois just to start, because it's like, who's the director that they're trying to go to? It's like
It's
the guy who made 16 Candles.
We're talking about John Hughes, and they go
John
in
Hughes. And the whole reason
about
he's basically like, yeah, there's some fine honeys in this place in Illinois, and we realized that we could make a lot of money selling weed in this town because like I know all these movies. And then they realize that the town's not even real.
Yeah.
I think that's
It's hilarious.
They're there.
And then when he's describing how like Silent Bob, like movies that he's like, I can't watch like Pretty in Pink because like he basically like cries like a little baby bitch, and like whatever he said, like,
yeah, he's like, there's nothing good about a fat guy crying.
Crying, yeah. And then like like talks about. I love when they realize, because if you are familiar with John Hughes movies, when they say that Judd Nelson is basically the man, like out of all those movies, and they both like agree on that.
They're like yeah.
That whole rant, and that's another good example of Jason Mewes just. And it is crazy because he was like pretty deep into a heroin addiction while doing this. Like it was like Kevin Smith almost completely
cut him out of everything.
Cut him out of everything. And he said there's a few scenes where you can actually see him like nodding from just being high.
Yeah.
But then he said when he was in scenes with certain people like Alan Rickman, like he wanted to make sure that he knew all of his lines because he didn't want to like disappoint
Embarrass
someone,
himself,
like embarrass himself. Yeah, so like it is interesting that he was going through a lot while making that movie, and there are moments where you can kind of tell, but I think for the most part he still
I mean,
holds
his
his own.
delivery of the lines is unquestionable. There's no pauses. There's no nothing. It's just seamless.
Yeah,
I don't know how. I mean, I've never done heroin, so I can't
yeah,
speak
I can't.
to
I've also never
what
done
it's
heroin.
like trying to memorize a line and being on a movie set while doing it. So but the fact that he was able to get this performance out while he was really, really struggling is
Yeah,
impressive to say the least.
I agree. So what about if Chris Rock playing
Yeah,
the
Chris Rock. Well, I guess we can
30
set the whole thing up as
thing of the,
well. Like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I mean, the reason that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, Loki and Bartleby are trying to get to this church. So the church, first of all, sets off this new Catholicism wow campaign
Wow.
because
Buddy,
and if
Buddy
anyone's ever
Christ.
seen that meme of Buddy Christ, it's from this movie. It's like the winking Jesus.
Yeah.
It's from this movie, which is great to see. But it basically is like trying to revamp Catholicism, and so they're saying that anyone who enters through the church can be blessed and be atoned of all their sins, like a kind of a
Right.
clean slate thing. So the angels, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, realize that they can use this because they were cast out of heaven for other reasons, kind of like defying God, and they can use this to get back into heaven because they've been banished to Wisconsin for eternity. But that in and of itself would basically negate the law of God, and if the law of, or the word of God is negated, then that means all of existence would not be like fallible or whatever it is. So basically, if the angels cross the and get blessed, then nothing would be real and nothing would exist anymore. So that's what they're trying to stop. And then she gets charged on this holy crusade by Alan Rickman, the angel, who I love.
Metatron. I almost called him Megatron. Sorry, Metatron.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah,
it's like Megatron.
But I can't imagine Alan reading the script and his first scene is showing his loins that don't exist.
That don't exist.
How did they sign him up for this movie? I don't know, but he does something.
There was, I was going to read it later, but I read it now because you brought it up. There is a trivia about Alan Rickman. Let me see if I can find it right away. About him being cast in this, and because he only had like 2 questions about the script. Okay, according to Kevin Smith, Alan Rickman he was too afraid to offer him the role because he was like he didn't know that he would want to take it. And he had 2 questions. Like he was like, "Are you going to change any of the stuff about the script that like is controversial?" And he wanted to make sure that didn't happen. And then he also asked if his wings were going to be real or CGI. And that is the only question that he had about.
He was in
the script, and he was in. He was like, he wanted them to stay faithful to their script, and he wants to know if his wings were going to be real or CGI.
Yeah. And hey, he did Galaxy Quest, so he might be.
That's true. He might be up for anything. Yeah, he might be one of those
which is another sleeper movie.
That's a great movie. Yeah,
great movie. That might be up on a pick
for sure. Yeah, I love that movie. It's so. Is it underrated? Sorry, we know the tangent. Sorry,
I don't know. That movie's so good.
It is really funny. But yeah, and then so like she accepts. Well, she doesn't really fully accept that she has to go on this quest. But she slowly gets convinced when she ends up meeting like Jalen, Silent Bob, because they end up being like the prophets that he said that she was going to meet. And then getting up on that car ride, right? And is it Jason Mewes? Like, yeah, Jay is driving like a maniac, right?
At 90 miles an hour. Going, what gear are you in? He's like,
and then the car gets busted, and she gets like kind of pissed off, and she's like, oh, I can't believe I was going to do this like with you guys, blah blah blah. And she basically gets a sign like that falls from the sky in the form of a very naked Chris Rock,
which they show many views of.
Many views, like a lot of angles of it.
A lot of angles of it. A lot of.
You can tell that it's him. It's not like that was a body double.
It's definitely him.
But yeah, he plays Rufus, 13th apostle that they didn't write about. Kind of guess why. Kind of guess why they cut him out of the Bible if you're. He's black. Dude, I mean, Chris Rock for me sometimes is hit or miss, but in this, I think because apparently there's only one line he didn't stick to the script, but it's a really funny line that he improv, and it's when she asks if he knew Christ.
Yeah,
he's like Christ. He's like,
he owes me $12, but he says it different.
Yeah, I'm black. I can say it. That nigga owes me $12.
Yeah,
I said it. that was the only line that he improv, and like they kept it. So yeah, that's typical like Chris Rock
Yeah.
delivery. I love his stuff because he's funny, but then I love that he kind of feels this like genuine kind of like he affinity for her, like where he's like trying to help her like on her quest and like make her kind of see the light a bit. He's not playing it all for jokes, even though he does play a lot of it for jokes. But I really liked him in this. Like I said, he could be hit or miss, but I think he did a really good job. And I think it's because too, he's one of those comedians that I can take in small doses. This is not like a Chris Rock.
It's not a
like,
Chris Rock
movie. Yeah, right. So like this is another example. He reminds me of like Russell Brand in the sense where I can take Russell Brand in small doses. And Chris Rock
getting to the Greek is too much.
Yeah, Chris Rock in this movie just enough, and I really enjoy his like.
I think he takes the character. He like you said, the character development is great. Like it goes from this is just another guy that's kind of like Jay and Silent Bob that's going to be a comedic relief to this movie.
Yeah.
But he talks about how I like yes, what we do in heaven once you're dead is we watch people. Like that's kind of the main thing.
Yeah.
But he talks about like, hey, I do know you, and like this is sort of the thing. Like I'm here to help you. I have all these good ideas and these good information to help you along your journey. I'm not going to give you all of it yet because it's overwhelming, as we'll find out. But like I think he does a good job taking it with like his serious moments and his informative moments are really well done, especially like by the campfire. And
I thought that was good too.
And but I love the scene when they're on the train and he's walking to the back and just that girl walks by and he's just like
yeah, that was great.
Yeah, there's a lot of good moments that are just very
with him.
Small.
Very small. Yeah, I actually thought how like he can do like the funny stuff and then make it serious.
Yeah,
I don't know how in one line you can have that dialogue about like how he basically said, I know watching you this long, and he had the line about the guy the kid or whatever that she let like pee in her hair.
Yeah.
But then in like one breath after that, it was like, and then like he died 2 years later of leukemia, and his name was like Brad Johnson or whatever. And they both say it at the same time, and it turns into a serious thing where she's like, "Oh, you do know, like you haven't watched me, you do know exactly like."
Well, I also like how he confirms her fear, where he's like, "I never told anyone about that." And he's like, "Yep, neither did he." So it's kind of like it relieves her anxiety of like, oh, maybe someone knows out there or something like that. It's like, nope, nobody did, and he was good till the end.
And then to put a button on it when he was like, he walks away, and then like Jay is basically like, well,
tell me something about me.
He's like, you masturbate more than anyone else in the world. He's like yeah, everybody knows that.
Everybody knows that.
It's like when you do it, you think about guys, and then the Silent Bob's face is just like,
looks at him, like, not all the time, man.
Not all the time, man. Yeah, just like going from like moments like that to just purely like comedic ones are another good example of that with those characters.
Yeah.
And then from there, I'm trying to remember. This is eventually, is that when we meet Salma Hayek? I was trying to figure out.
First we meet Jason Lee,
So who actually was going to play Loki at first, but had like a scheduling conflict, so he had to take a smaller part in the movie.
He does much better as.
I think this is more his speed.
Yeah, dude. I don't know about his delivery, but he is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like just the sign, he's like, I'm a fucking demon, man. Like, come on, give me your best shot. Like, just his sort of disrespect and his like nihilism. Like, he just has this like self-confidence about him where he like knows everything, but he's playing an evil character. He does a great job in this, and so he kind of sets these hockey player lackeys. Wait, I don't really like. I
get the point, but I didn't love it either. I see what they were trying to do.
Basically, like these sort of like hellish hell hounds sort of kind of characters.
They're like almost like 3 horse. I don't know, like what they're trying to do with that.
There's always flies buzzing when you see the characters, which actually kind of gets pretty annoying once you once you see these characters all the time. But like they're basically the minions of him, and he's trying to send them to kill Bethany. So we see that, and so we know that he's kind of up to something. But then, yes, they go to the strip club to see Salma Hayek, who is serendipity.
And it's funny because they go there. They're like, "What are you doing here?" Jay is like, "I'm trying to prove to this fool I'm not gay." Because it was after that whole dialogue about like him thinking about guys while he jerks off. That's the way he does it, because they're doing that whole like head thing while they're like watching her.
Classic.
And for people that don't know, they're playing "Candy Girl" by New Edition, which is a pretty great 80s song.
Yeah.
Just Kevin Smith is like fan of like music like that, so I'm glad that he like incorporated some of that stuff into the movie. But yeah, quite the interest for Salma Hayek.
Yeah.
As we learn that she's able to convince all these guys to give her more money because
Yeah.
she's supposed to be cause she's supposed to be like
'Cause she's the
serendipity.
muse.
Is the muse, yeah. And this was pretty like, you know what's funny is that I'm not too
She still looks
familiar.
the same, man. She looks
She hasn't aged that much. I did see that somehow she got nominated for a Razzie for this part, but I think this came out the same year as Wild Wild West, so I think they were trying to be like she was also in that, and I think they were just trying to lump her supporting performances into like, oh, you had a really
One
crappy
thing.
year. I thought she was hilarious in this. Selma Hayek, I mean, I know some people think like, oh, there's a little bit of a language barrier with her, but I think she can drop like really good dialogue sometimes. I mean,
so.
and I thought she was really good in this too. Some really good lines and like some really good delivery.
Yeah, I thought
on
she
her
did.
part.
She was definitely supporting. I
Yeah.
don't think that she really added to the story that much, like in terms of like, yes, you have an apostle and you have prophets, and in turn, like with all the religion things that are going around, I don't think she really added a whole lot. They kind of glossed over, like she's like, oh, I was part of the top, like I inspired the 19 of the top 20 movies except Home Alone, which was
That's
kind of funny. But
I
like,
thought it was funny. Yeah.
yeah, good delivery, but like they don't really go into it, which I mean, it would be kind of pointless to give her more backstory, but
Yeah.
it didn't like that. I don't know. I do like that it her character, but it felt a little bit just like an add-on.
Yeah, it's interesting too because like at this point in the movie, you're still getting introduced to new people. I mean, I know the
Yeah.
movie's like 2 hours and 8 minutes, but like it's so many people in the cast that like you're that far into it and you're like still meeting like new people that are going to play some kind of role and all
Yeah.
this. And I kind of forgot watching this. Like Alan Rickman does disappear for like a good chunk of the movie. I forgot
yeah.
that watching it again. I remember thinking like before that he was in it more consistently, but he's gone for a good chunk of the middle. And there's a welcome presence when he comes back. But yeah, you know, when you have a cast like this big, it's hard for everyone to
You got to give him some screen time.
share all that time. I love just talking about Ben Affleck and Matt Damon again because I love how at the beginning of their stuff, it seems like Matt Damon is the more unhinged one a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they kind of switch, and you kind of really get that when they're in that like the boardroom and they're going through like basically.
I love one of my favorite scenes in the
that
movie.
scene
It's
is
so
my.
good.
I think that's my favorite like comedic scene in the movie, and that's all Matt Damon just kind of. I mean, Ben Affleck does chime in, and they do some really funny stuff.
He does a lot of the talking too.
But like Matt Damon owns that scene, just going around the room, just kind of like revealing everyone's like things basically and why they're not pure.
Before the boardroom, I love when they're sitting in the back of the bus and they're talking. He's like, and they're like kind of talking about. He's like, oh, I think you lost your nerve. He's like, no, I didn't, man. He's like, well, there's a sin right there that I can absolve, adultery. He's like, hey, man, are you married? Yeah.
Yeah.
But, to her, not like it's any of your fucking business, but no. And then he just kind of looks at Ben Affleck, smiles, and just shoots him in the back of the head. So good. I loved that. I burst out
when they like get off the bus and they like kind of just are looking at each other and like Ben Affleck's looking at him like,
yeah. What does Matt Damon say?
I think
after that, what was
I don't know what the whole rant. I don't know what it's from because he does that whole like whose house, like Ron's house, that whole thing.
I didn't get that reference.
And then he says stuff like Martin. I thought he was like making fun of like the TV show Martin because that's how the theme song, like parts of it goes. But I don't really know.
Yeah, that one always kind of stood out as like I don't get that.
It's still funny to me. Like it's just the way he kind of does it. But yeah, like from there and then to the boardroom stuff, like Matt Damon just kills it.
Yeah, because they basically go to the boardroom and they are because he wants to kind of get some like they have a few days before they can get to the church and do the cross the plane, and so he's like, I want to kind of get some stuff out. So they go to this. I don't know. Are they making fun of Disney?
I think they are kind of just I think that or any kind of like commercialism. Basically, I think that is a big target of it, though.
They're basically they're like, hey, you are worshiping a false idol, which is a 10 commandment. Yeah, and so he just goes around and basically like leaves out all their dirty laundry that they have and the skeletons in the closet, and some of them are brutal.
Really bad. Like
They're super bad. It's like, oh, you cheated on your wife, like, well, you're supposed to be watching the kids,
yeah.
like 8 times last year. They're like, oh god. And like, I think the last one, when he's talking to sort of like the CEO,
Yeah.
like they whisper it in his ear, but I mean, he's like, oh yeah, that's your son, for
For God's
like,
sake. Yeah.
and
You're like,
like, is
whoa.
that, are they insinuating he
Implying
was like molesting his son?
son.
as a
I think they
kid?
were implying that. Yeah.
It's dark. It's super dark. But then
And they get to the
discover,
girl. He's
yeah,
like,
and
no,
then they get to the girl,
you're
it's like, you know what? You're good.
you're
You've
good.
led a
You're good.
you've led a pretty innocent life. You're fine
Life.
in this. But you
Yeah.
didn't say God bless you.
Yeah, that's so great. So there's like he does this whole thing where he's talking about voodoo dolls too, where he makes like a little voodoo doll out of like the onion, and he's like going like basically saying like what could happen if like you hurt parts of the voodoo doll, like basically everyone knows, and the whole build up to that of him like slamming his head on it, guy getting all scared and like like basically, like, do you think I believe? I don't believe in like that. Basically,
I don't believe in voodoo.
I don't believe in voodoo. And then he just leaves the room, and they're just all relieved. And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, but I believe in this." And he just like shoots
Pulls out
all
a
of them,
Magnum.
and then just shoots
Desert
all of them. He's
Eagle
like,
or something.
"It's like you're all fakes. You're all fakes." He's just shouting that at everyone. And then like when he gets to her, like he's telling her that she could leave, and then she's just like shaking. And then when he does say like, "Oh, but you didn't say God bless you when I sneeze,"
You're
he's
getting
like,
off
"Okay,
easy.
you're getting off easy." So that I mean that's like that was my favorite comedic scene in the movie. It's just
It's
again
really good.
more good stuff from both of them, but that's mostly Matt Damon's show
Damon.
at that point.
Yeah, 100%.
What did you think of the? I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe the poo thing.
I don't like it. I'll tell you that. I didn't like it. I think it's the weakest part of the movie.
Part of the movie. Yeah, I mean, it's an elaborate poo joke. It's just I don't know if
it's pretty over the top.
it doesn't completely work.
Work at all.
It does seem out of place.
I don't know
I mean,
why they.
I'm trying to
threw
think
that
of
in
like
there.
what laugh that one thing he did do to stop it was spray basically like air freshener on it to like kill it. I mean, that was
Yeah.
kind of funny. I really don't know. I mean, it is an elaborate poo joke.
Well, all the religious things that they could have picked, like
Yeah.
there were so many different avenues they could have gone down to do something that was like a scary demon that they had to fight, and like it could have been anything, and like it just seemed kind of like a throwaway. Like maybe it
Yeah.
was the last scene that they wrote. I don't know. It didn't, like, I actually skipped it on my last, like, kind of
Oh,
like, the
really?
last, yeah. I skipped a few moments of it. I was just like, yeah, I don't really want to see that. It's not my
Yeah,
favorite part.
I think the only thing that made me laugh, and it is a really cheap joke, is when she asked him, "Why do you carry that around with you?" And then Jay just like farts, and it's
Yeah.
because it's the timing of it, and he just sprays down again. And you're like,
Yeah,
that was
that's
kind of
it.
funny.
Yeah, that was good.
But like, yeah, I mean, I guess that is if I have to pick a part in the movie, that is my least favorite, just because it's also disgusting.
Yeah, it's not. It goes on too long.
Yeah, I kind of want to find out if there is a reason for it to be in there. But I can't think of anything other than like Kevin Smith being really immature in a very
Yeah,
like
that's probably it.
in a movie that's not immature.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not my favorite moment in the movie as well, and it does go on really long, and there is like the build up to it too, like coming out of the toilet.
Yeah, and that guy getting drowned in it or something. Like,
the only thing I do like about it that's funny, because they have all the black gang members go attack it.
yeah,
You don't really see what happens to them, but watching everyone's facial expressions as they're looking up and down to like they're getting like tossed around.
Yeah.
Chris Rock actually has the best of all of them, where he's just like looking inside. That stuff was funny.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wouldn't be worth it for just that.
no,
moment.
it was like a 9-minute scene.
Yeah. But yeah. I was like,
Yeah,
when I was watching it today, I
it's-
was like, that's pretty gross.
It's gross. It's definitely pretty gross.
And then the train stuff is actually some of my favorite stuff
It's
in the movie.
really good. Just because Jason Lee comes and he says, "Hey, like you're kind of on the radar now.
Yeah.
People
You
know
just
that
stay
you're
under
about
radar."
to, people know that you're about to try and do this, but I've kind of kept it under wraps. Like this is my doing." And he's like acting kind of buddy buddy, even though he has his own interests
Yeah.
for doing all this kind of stuff. But it leads to them going onto the train and
Yeah,
sort of
and it's funny because they end up on that train because they're trying to get, of course, to the church as well. And the girl at the window that has that deadpan, like well, we're trying to go to New Jersey or whatever, and she's like, well, basically, you should have underestimated like the lure of like New Jersey.
the
You should have
lure
got here
of the Garden State.
You should have got here 2 hours earlier, and then she just shuts the window. But yeah, that's why they end up on the train with our other lead characters. They don't know who they are.
No.
That's always a fun thing, and it's good that like find a reason to kind of separate Rufus from like the rest of them because he would know who they are right away.
Mhm.
But the scene between Bethany and like Ben Affleck, I think it's like the best written scene
It's really
in the
well done.
movie because they're talking about two completely different things, but the exact same things. Where like she's talking about like her husband, not wanting to be with her anymore,
Yeah.
and basically like why would God let that kind of happen to her? Like God kind of turned her back on her, and he's basically like, well, God turned his back on me, and like it's
Why? It's like I
really
kept talking and he stopped listening.
listening. Yeah, it's just like and really well acted by both, and that's the scene I actually think that she is the best in throughout the movie. And I think it's
Yeah.
also like for a lot of people who say Ben Affleck, who questions him as an actor sometimes, like I thought he was really solid
Really good there.
in that scene. And I actually think at that point of the movie is when he kind of takes over. I mean, it's him and Matt Damon riding together for so long, but I
And
think
this
at
is
that
where
point
he just kind of goes off
it completely takes over. Yeah, yeah, and I just thought he was just really. They were both really good in that scene. And I thought it was like,
the line where she thinks that they're a gay couple,
yeah,
and then she and then Matt Ben Affleck goes, "Do I come off as gay?"
Who is gay?
He's like,
Yeah.
no. He's like, okay, good. And like,
Okay, good.
I don't know if that was like some self-realization or an actual question or something, but that just made me laugh.
Yeah,
I
that
thought
was really funny.
hilarious.
Yeah, I thought that was really great. Like the scene almost plays like a flirtatious kind of thing too
Yeah,
between
it
them
does.
at first, and like I think that's why it works so well. Like there's a lot of layers to what they're doing, and of course she gets more like when they find she's like, okay, we need drinks, and they start like drinking, and she gets more drunk, and then that's when she lets slip like where she's on her way to.
her
Dude, and his face when he realizes
Just
like what,
falls.
yeah,
He's like-
completely falls, yeah. But then you were talking about like the action. The action in that scene is
so bad.
I mean, I guess it's supposed maybe not be great. I don't know. It is pretty laughable though.
Yeah,
Just watching her like jump on his back,
jump
and then,
on
like,
his back, and then
and
Kevin
Chris
Smith
Rock gets
throws
tossed him.
Matt Damon out
David,
the,
yeah,
out the back,
yeah,
and then he does the Indiana Jones line, no
Yep.
ticket sort of
no,
thing.
yeah. But other than that, I think that scene is really
It's good.
great.
I love Matt Damon pretending to hit the joint underneath the
Oh yeah, that's a really great moment. They're looking at him like.
And he's like, oh yeah, you're not.
And then he like in the way because he copies like hitting the table after he does it.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing too.
Yeah. The writing's just really good with that scene. It just kind of shows this similarity between what they say is like the angels and the humans, and why
Right.
he's so jealous of them, because for the same reasons that she's basically being forgiven and all of these
Right.
things, he's been cast out.
Right.
So like, even though like they've gone through the exact same thing in his, I guess, race as angels, or the like creation was first.
Yeah.
They've been given all of the benefit of the doubt, and so he's kind of seeing this and he's like, that's not fair. That's ridiculous. I can't believe that, like, after all this, you've only lived through this for a couple years,
right?
I've had to live through this for a millennia.
Yeah.
So that kind of sparks his monologue in the garage.
Yeah, which is really good. Like that, like
so
also
good. It's
more top-notch Ben Affleck.
Well, it also does just kind of like put some sort of things into perspective of like, when you think about it, like, as like, because obviously we're human, and so
Right.
we like, it kind of puts things into perspective of like, if you are religious, like what, like, it's like, oh, he's given us everything and we have it. Like, there's still people that don't even believe he exists. And so it's like that kind of threw me for a ringer, and like everything he's saying is true, but so you can see his frustration, and you're just like, damn, like, yeah, there are a lot of things that we've kind of taken for granted.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the moment on the train and then all the way up to the garage is like, and we'll mention it later, but the movie, of course, got a lot of flack for like poking fun at religion and Catholicism and stuff. But all the stuff in that scene is completely relatable, because when you're having like a crisis of faith and like kind of all that stuff, like
Yeah.
these are all very realistic things for you to question. Like in her situation, like, why would like God let something like that happen to her? And like, and in his, I mean, even though I can't really relate to it because we're not angels, but like the way
Yeah.
he describes it though, about like being cast out and like, all that stuff, like
We're trying to save the humans that God's
humans,
been saving for
right?
this whole time.
These are all very interesting questions that you should kind of ask I mean, I think sometimes with religion and for people who are religious, which is why I've always had a difficult time growing up with it, is you're almost like you're not supposed to question aspects of it.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that is always been a frustrating thing for me when it comes to religion, because it's like
Yeah.
I need more than just like this is how things are and you just gotta believe. I mean,
And
like,
that's the way it is.
and I know that's grounded in like faith. You have to have faith and like you just need to believe it. But like I think that's what the hardest thing is about religion. And I think the movie does a good job of like showing that, like, that aspect of it
Well, it
in a very
also
smart way.
yeah, in a very smart way, and that leads into the like the campfire scene too,
Yeah.
or just when they're in the woods, and like that is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie because it really shows how like the Bible and all of the things that like we have seen with religion,
Yeah.
it's all taken with a grain of salt. Like you really believe that Mary and Joseph didn't have any other kids. That would make no sense. Like
That's right.
absolutely no sense. And like, oh, I think the best part that really kind of like just sent me into a headspace was when they're like, all right, well, there's nothing in the Bible from when Jesus was 12 to when he was 30 because
Yeah.
he's sitting there, he is trying to figure out like how to be the son of God. Like
Right.
imagine you're a kid and some angel comes down and says you have to deal with all of this. Like that totally blew my mind because I'd
Yeah.
never thought of it in that perspective. And so I
Yeah.
think they do just a really, really good job questioning things that have not been questioned
Right.
openly and kind of seeing like, oh, do you really think there's not a cover up for some of the stuff that Jesus did like way back in
Right.
the day? It's like it's the church, man. Come on.
Now,
It's-
now here's the deal. I completely understand if you are religious, why this would be offensive to you.
oh my god, yeah.
I totally get it, but like to kind of have an open mind, but all right, it's
They pose some
important
good questions,
questions.
man.
Like this is very true, and you need to question some of this stuff. You don't have to necessarily believe it, but it does raise some very interesting, like, you should look into that a bit more.
Yeah.
And I think that's like beauty of his script. That's why I kind of think some people got the wrong idea. I don't really think he's entirely making fun of it. You can tell he has like some kind of connection to it as well in the writing.
Yeah.
It's not just about bashing the church and all that. I mean, there
Well,
is
'cause
stuff.
Chris Rock says it great. He's like, yes, the values are important, and that is the
Right.
whole point of it is to make sure that you're being a good person. I mean, golden rule basically, treat others how you want to be treated, and
Yeah.
like that is the whole thing. But then they talk about how Chris Rock even says, "Oh yeah, Jesus hates how we've it's like made this construct around him, and like all these different things." And so, I mean, it really puts into perspective, like because all of these values excuse me, have
Yeah.
kind of been unquestioned by most people that are religious. And so to have these questions kind of be put out there, I thought it was great, especially in a comedic sense. Like Kevin
Yeah.
Smith, he's not going out there being like, I hate religion, Catholicism is a lie. He's
Yeah.
basically just saying, like, are you not reading the same book that I am? This doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
think that's kind of what
exactly.
he's kind of going at it. He's like, is this weird to anyone else too? And I think that's the best part about it is
Yeah.
throwing things in light in a funny way so that he's not coming at it at a serious point where people are basically like pitchforks and torches coming being like you are going against God. It's like, hey,
Right.
this is all in good fun because I think that there are some things that are kind of ridiculous in the Bible and within religion and how we've taken it from these words that were written thousands of years ago to now. I think it's just done really, really well.
Really
But
well.
at the heart of it, it's like you should just continue to live your life in a good way.
In a good way. Yeah. I also love that Bethany questions like why can't like God do this like mission himself, and like why does she have to do, I mean, because I think a lot of people with religion too question like, all right, if he is is all knowing, all power, like that kind of thing, like why can't God just like make these things right
Yeah.
on his own? I'm glad that they have her question that I do thought it was funny that like Metatron's like, well, God's whereabouts are like unknown and like somewhere in New Jersey, like
He likes to play ski. She likes to play skee ball.
skee ball. Yeah, yeah. I thought that stuff was really funny, and then that's of course, she learns that she's the last Zion, and it's a distant but direct blood relative to Jesus, so that makes like
Yeah.
her
Well,
connection and all
that
this.
whole, like, oh, why me? Why me? Kind of brings like to
Yeah,
what I was saying before. Like Jesus said the same thing. Like,
thing. Yeah,
yeah, which
yep,
is that totally blew my mind because I never thought. I was just like, oh yeah, Jesus was born and he's like, yeah, I'm the son of God. That's it. What's up, bro? Like,
yeah,
just took it with a grain of salt, but he was human, so obviously he's gonna have some interesting thoughts on it and completely say like, I don't want that. That's not what I want to do. But
yeah, and
I had to come to terms with it.
and like all of it too, like not only just being the son of God, but just in like accepting that like what's gonna happen to
Yeah.
like this is what's gonna happen.
All the people you're trying to save, they're gonna kill you.
kill you. Yeah, yeah. And so like after all that, more Jason Lee stuff in the bar is like also really funny.
Yeah.
It also has some more. I mean, I know Salma Hayek doesn't have like a ton to do, but there's more like really funny stuff. Her interactions with Jason Lee are really good.
Well, before that, we get some George Carlin where he's
that's right. Yeah, right.
when they're talking, he's like, "What about Big Tobacco?" He's like, "Oh, I wish we had their numbers."
Yeah,
Like some of these off-color lines are
Lines,
so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, I mean, he basically says he's not gonna close the doors to not let the angels in because he doesn't believe them.
Yeah.
But they steal his golf club, which you learn out later he blessed to at a golf game. So it has now become a holy instrument. So he used that to kill Jason Lee. Which my favorite line is like, "Give me your best fucking shot." Like, he tears open his shirt.
And he like uses like the like flame thing to like it's so good.
Because you're just staring there, you're like, wow, you're really a piece of shit. I hate everything about your face and your voice. Oh, it's so good.
And then Bethany also blesses the bar's sink so they could actually finally get rid of the three little skater kids. The hockey kids, yeah, which is also again another fun example of how like the action's not so like when she dives across the bar and then does the pointing to the sinks. It's I mean, I guess Kevin Smith is like, yo, this is a $10 million movie. This is not this is not gonna be anything too elaborate, guys. I still think it's that whole scene is really well done too. Really funny.
Well, I mean, you find out Jason Lee's reasoning for the whole thing. I mean, he would rather not exist than be in hell. So you realize that like hell is probably pretty bad.
Yeah, not good at all.
Yeah.
And then like the last 15 minutes when they're just complete chaos because mayhem because of fucking Ben Affleck and mostly Ben Affleck, not so much Matt Damon.
It looks like he's getting drunk because he is getting drunk.
He's getting drunk because he's human. He lost his wings, and you find out like when the angel loses his wings, they turn human.
Yeah,
and like Damon, like we also plays a pretty fun drunk in those scenes. And I just love when they all finally get there, and when Ben Affleck drops that first dude. Yeah, and the whole I kind of forgot that happened when I was watching it today.
Splatter,
and I was like, "Oh shit!" And I don't know, moments like that are just really you put a needle on that. It's like really, really fucking funny. And then just like Matt Damon trying to explain like why he's kind of lost his mind and all that stuff. And again, continues the whole like Ben Affleck completely owning that role. Like the last say that I mean he's good in a lot of scenes, but like continues to be great. Towards the end of the movie,
really good at the end, and just his facial expressions and his emotion, and all of it, from anger to sort of like this mania, and then like sorrow, and then like pain. Like it's. I mean, we haven't even talked about the fact that God is a woman in all of this. Yeah. And I think that was a really, I mean, Salma Hayek delivers the line when she's like, did you really think that she wasn't? Like, I mean, look at all the things that she's done. Yeah. I thought that was a really, really good choice too.
Yeah. And that was a good choice on Kevin Smith's part. It was actually really smart. And I think at the time, well, because of who he cast as God, I think there was a lot of like stuff kind of went along with that. Like, and that some people thought maybe he was being too like, oh, like I wonder if he made the movie now, and they'd probably be like, "Oh, of course he made God a woman." I think the kind of the reaction to it today would be
"You're so woke, dude."
Woke, yeah, it'd be like really different. But yeah, I love that he made that choice as well. I also was surprisingly, even though it's not a long moment, was surprisingly kind of moved when Ben Affleck had to kill like Matt Damon because like I
Yeah.
feel like you're watching like two best and like it
Two
seems like a genuine moment like
Yeah.
where he like does it and yeah, I was like
Immediately dies. Just
it immediately dies, like just falls
Yeah.
down to the ground. Yeah, and I also love like as like earlier in the movie, Jay basically insinuates like if the world's about to end, like whatever,
She was
like
there's 5 minutes left
Just left,
for us to
like,
live. Like, would you have sex with me?
this with
She's
me,
like,
and she was
yeah,
like,
in that crazy situation. Yes. I
if,
would."
like yeah, and that
So
like
they're
unreal
hiding.
hiding.
He's
The way he's like
taking his
getting
clothes
ready,
off, and she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like,
Like,
"Well, you said."
yeah, and then that's when he mentions the whole like John Doe jersey thing, which kind of happens at the very beginning of the movie where three hockey kids like attack the older man, and that's who God's been hiding inside of. But like so where she's like, "Wait, say that again," and I like, forgot what he said about like basically it was more of like wanting to get down with her, and she's like,
Yeah.
no, the other thing,
The other thing.
and like she was like, all right, I need you to kind of like make sure that he like probably doesn't get inside the truck, stall him. What he chooses to do to stall him
Just shoots like 900 bullets
to his
to
wings.
cut his wings off.
Dude, the wing effect stuff, it's like kind of cheap looking, but also
And well done.
well done. Like it was like gross enough where I was like, all right, I believe it.
It
Like
looks
especially
like
when
it's
they were
actually
getting shot,
part
when
of
they
like
get
it's
shot
yeah.
off.
Like
Yeah,
it's not just like feathers flying everywhere. It was like bloody.
yeah. I thought it was
I thought that was pretty well done.
I thought that was really well done too. And then of course, Ben Affleck does not make it into the church because
God shows up.
Yeah, Bethany was able to do what she needed to do before that could happen, and God does show up. And then another surprisingly emotional moment for him, which
He immediately apologizes.
Yeah, and I like again like completely moved by it. I was like, oh
Yeah.
like
And you can see the acceptance on her face too, where she's
Like-
just like, "I forgive you, but now I gotta blow your head off."
oh yeah, and I love when like Selma Hayek and Chris Rock immediately are like on the ground, and Jason and Jay is still like standing.
They're like, "Bow down, you idiot!"
Chris Rock is delivery is being like, "Bow down, idiot!" Just gets
Yeah.
him down on the ground. And then like Alan Rickman's basically tells everyone to cover their ears if they're not
Dead
dead
or
or
if you're human or not.
human, or something along those lines, human or not, or is it
It's like if you're not already dead or
human, yeah.
or cover your ears because humans can't withstand the voice of God. It's too
God.
awesome.
And
Apparently.
here's the deal: God is played by Alanis Morissette. We do not get to hear Alanis Morissette's signature voice, but she does open it.
Yeah.
But it was really
I
cool.
did not know that was Alanis Morissette. That's amazing.
Yeah, Alanis Morissette. Fun fact: she wanted her to play Bethany. She was busy on her tour and she couldn't, so this is all she had time
So
for.
you get God. You get to
So
be
you
God.
get God. You get to be God. You don't have any lines, but still kind of interesting the way they kind of depict her.
Yeah, I loved it because after sort of everything is like finished and they stopped Ben Affleck and they revive Bethany as because she died as a martyr in that scene, and like,
Yeah.
you just see God you just see Alanis going and like smelling flowers and doing a handstand and like just kind of like being goofy and having fun.
Yeah,
And I really love that because it kind of just took as like whole reason for creation and the reason that we might even be here on this earth is just to like enjoy the little things.
Little
And
things,
even if it's not just like, oh, there's a higher power and a higher thing that's out there, it's like, listen, God is just as silly and as fun and as like interested in the small things that are around that we should be doing the same thing. Like it's good to stop and smell the
Yeah.
roses and do some fun things and enjoy everything that's around us. And I actually really like that sort of last scene, just showing the like innocence of it all.
yeah, and I also like that they show that God has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
When she basically asks her like, "Wait, what does it all mean?" That kind of like,
Yeah.
why are we here? That kind of thing, and you think she's gonna tell her, and it just goes like, boop, and that was it. That was it. I do love that like we get to come full circle with Bethany, that she kind of accepts. You know what I do like? She admits that she's not fully like 100% a believer at the end, but like has a bit more understanding. I'm glad that they didn't like completely change her to be like, oh, like this all makes sense to me now. I could still be in a pretty like gray spot, I think,
Yeah.
with all of it. And I'm glad that they wrote it that way, where she's a bit more accepting of it, but she's still more for her to figure out. And she gets to be with child, which is also nice because we had that whole build up with her like not being able to conceive and
So
all
she
that.
does get a
And
miracle.
she does get a miracle, and really, I come off as cheesy, but all moments of them like saying goodbye to her as they're going back into the church. I like that she has like a nice little moment with like every single one of them.
Yeah.
Because like the cool thing about this movie is like a lot of movies like this end up being like the road trip kind of movie. So you've been watching them go from like point A to like point B together. And now that it's all over, you're like, you know, you've invested all this time and like you've gotten to know them. And it's just kind of nice to have them have these like final moments together that are like genuine. And like we talked about this before with, I know this is totally different, like with Tucker and Dale, but like we talked about how we love comedies where it's just not, I mean, of course we probably do love comedies where it's just like, that's all we're going to get is the humor. But I like when they can kind of mix in like genuine like emotion into it. And
yeah, definitely.
I think Kevin Smith is a good writer.
Yeah, the writing in this is really good, and each goodbye is very personalized, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, like she even, and like when the time it was over, when she's like sitting down with Jay and Silent Bob, I think the one thing I kind of wish when it was all over is that, because this is my favorite movie that he's done.
Yeah,
I know you wouldn't be able to have like more stuff with a lot of these characters, but I wish they could have been fit in. I mean, I don't know if I needed a sequel per se, but it would have been nice to kind of
I don't know how you do one.
It'd be hard to do one. I think it would have been fun to revisit some of them. Like by the time it was over, I was like, I had a good time with them, and I was like, I would have loved to have seen.
I want to see Chris Rock as the Apostle again.
So yeah, for sure. It was like when you chose this movie, I was like, I remember loving it. It is my favorite Kevin Smith movie, but like watching it in the moment today, I was like, I forgot why this is like one of my favorite movies. I just kind of wish that like this is not where like he peaked for me, like, because I feel like there's so much more.
99 should not be your peak.
Where you peaked, and people are going to disagree with this. And I know for a lot of people, his best movie is a toss up between this and Chasing Amy. They're both very good. I just think that he kind of went full swing on this one, and that's why this one works for me more. That you feel like he took a lot of chances with this movie, and then just knowing what a bitch it was to have it come out, because he dealt with a lot. Well, I'll go over some of like a little bit of it. So the release got delayed a lot because of different issues in different countries, and it had a lot to do with they were saying what they felt they were saying about Catholic Church and Catholic.
Not surprising there.
So the movie was originally scheduled for a November 1998 release and to be released by Miramax Films, but due to controversy, the film was postponed for a 1999 release, and the rights were passed on to Lionsgate Films for the United States, although Miramax Films retained foreign distribution rights. Now, this is why. How did you watch it?
Did you watch it on YouTube?
So this is why, guys. This movie is not available to stream or buy on video on demand. I was able to watch a physical copy because I do own it.
It was a lot better resolution than the
probably on YouTube. And you can still find a physical copy, but some of them are really expensive. But Evan Smith explained that good old pal Harvey Weinstein, since they own the foreign rights to Dogma, he basically said that Harvey has kind of held the movie hostage. That Harvey Weinstein reached out to him a week before that big new story broke about Me Too and Harvey Weinstein, and he talked about like, hey, like I still have Dogma, we should do something with it. And Kevin Smith was basically like, yeah, kind of like I haven't really thought about a sequel. And then it kind of came down to like, okay, well, how much do you want for the rights? And this is why he says he's holding it hostage. He was like, I found out that he was trying to sell the rights to the movie. He was asking for $5 million, which was overvaluing the movie. Smith's lawyers, please tell that company that I'll have nothing to do with it. And speaking of Weinstein, if he's still attached to it, I'll work on Dogma anything as long as he has no more ties to it. We reached out to buy the rights ourselves, which we felt very dirty about because we didn't want to give
buying your own stuff.
He was like, we didn't want to give him money, but at the same time, it's like my movie and he's got it and I wanted it back. He's holding it hostage. My movie about angels is being owned by the devil himself. And there's only one way out of this. Maybe we could buy it away. We sent an offer that was scoffed at by Weinstein, then a higher offer that was also scoffed at. And he said, look, I love Dogma as much as the next guy, but A, I don't have $5 million, and B, that's not what the market bears anymore. We live in a streaming era. The last I heard was from a different company saying he wouldn't sell me my movie back. I thought, what else can I do? There's not much. you can make a public stink, but I don't think that guy reads the news anymore. And doesn't, of course not. We all know where he is now. But that is so depressing knowing that like one of your best movies is not, you don't own it anymore.
Yeah.
And now people can't even unless they want to watch it on YouTube or like you did, or if they have a physical copy of it, they can't get it anymore. And that's that's unfortunate.
It sucks. It's depressing to see that.
It's very unfortunate. But the movie came out. It was the third highest grossing film in its opening weekend, behind The Bone Collector and Pokemon, the first movie, grossing $8.7 million in its opening weekend.
That's just sad.
Weird. That's a weird state of affairs.
Yeah, we lost to Pokemon.
The film grossed a domestic total of $30.7 million from a $10 million budget, and then $44 million worldwide. It remains the highest grossing film in Smith's View Askewniverse series. It has a 67% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Most critics gave it a generally favorable reviews. But some religious groups, in particular the activist Catholic League, denounced the film as blasphemous. Other groups staged protests outside theaters screening the film. Director Kevin Smith himself attended one of these protests, pretending to be opposed to the movie.
That's hilarious.
That's hilarious. Roger Ebert, who gave the movie 3.5 out of 4 stars, noted that no official objection came from the Catholic Church itself. We are actually free in this country to disagree about religion, Ebert wrote, and blasphemy is not a crime.
That's a great review from our boy Roger.
I think that is good. Then some other fun, interesting facts. So William Donahue of the Catholic League lambasted the film and publicly protested against it for months without actually seeing it. When his office called View Askew and requested a special screening so he could speak about it intelligently, Kevin Smith responded, "So what has he been doing the past 6 months?"
That's so funny.
Oh, that's awesome. And then Alan Rickman cast because I heard that he was a Chasing Amy fan, and that's why they gave him
nice
the script. Mewes had the entire script memorized before rehearsals. When asked why, he said it's because he didn't want to anger Alan Rickman, because Kevin Smith took him aside before rehearsal began.
He memorized all of it.
Said he needed to be on his best behavior and bring his aim game to set. Now here's the thing about Linda. He did his best, I think.
Yeah.
According to Kevin Smith, Linda Fiorentino was very difficult to work with. She played Bethany. Some days she wouldn't even speak to him. He later said that he wished he offered the role to Janeane Garofalo, who is in the abortion clinic scene with her in the first scene. Yeah,
she's hilarious. Even that's like that 34-second. Well,
Janeane Garofalo back then, because like that was around the time of like Mystery Men too. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but that movie's absolutely hilarious and completely underrated. Janeane Garofalo used to be really funny back then. Once filming wrapped, Smith and Fiorentino didn't speak to each other anymore, but after Smith suffered a heart attack in 2018, he was contacted by many people he hadn't spoken to in a long time, including Fiorentino. During their conversation, he apologized to her over his earlier comments about her, and then he said, "I was thankful to her, hear from her, and also gave me a chance to say I'm sorry that I ever said those things years ago. It gives you a chance to make amends." So that was my favorite one of everyone you got to talk to after he had his heart attack. So at least
that's good to hear. Sucks that he had to have a heart attack to have that amends, but
yeah. And I'm trying to imagine her on, because it seemed like she does have good moments with everyone in the movie, but I
think she's like professional. That's probably why.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with like who she shares a lot of the scenes with. Like I'm pretty sure she was fine with like Alan Rickman and there's probably even Chris Rock.
And also like during filming, like Kevin Smith's not saying anything, so it's like it's like if they have to cut, it's just her listening to Jason Mewes. It's like, all right, like it's a whole like 2 or 3 weeks of just those scenes. You're probably fucking sick of it.
Exactly. Kevin Smith pursued Robert Rodriguez to direct the film, but Rodriguez enjoyed the script and saw how personal the story was and insisted that Smith himself direct it. Kevin Smith also wrote the screenplay for Dogma before he wrote Clerks in 1994, but shelved it because he wanted to do proper visual effects. I guess that's the best you could do with $10 million.
Yeah. Proper fight choreography.
The role of Loki was written for Jason Lee, but Skelly forced him to take on a smaller role, and Matt Damon took over as Loki, especially after they saw the genuine chemistry that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck had coming off of Good Will Hunting. I didn't notice this. I remember it now. It says in the scene where Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are in the gun shop, you can see Ben pick up a knife and play with it. If you continue to watch Ben, you will see him cut his finger. He then recoils with a look of shock on his face. They said they joke about this on the DVD commentary that he actually did cut himself in the scene, and they didn't cut it out.
I didn't notice that.
Oh, that's amazing. Buddy Christ statue that was used in the film is on display still at Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, a comic book store in Red Bank, New Jersey, owned by Kevin Smith. And then replicas of the statue are on sale at the store and have become one of the store's biggest selling items. That makes complete sense to me.
Yeah.
that would happen. Let's see. Oh, Kevin Smith also almost offered the role of Bethany to Gillian Anderson, who is Scully on the X-Files. I guess that could have worked too back then.
Yeah, I can see that.
Emma Thompson was almost going to appear as God in the film. Drew before filming began to have a baby. Her first child was born in December 1999, just after this film was released. That's why she couldn't be in the movie.
I like Alanis. I'll take that.
Take that too. Due to the controversy surrounding the film, Disney was having doubts about releasing it. At which point, Miramax's Harvey Weinstein personally bought the distribution rights, which is why we're at where we're at today, and Lionsgate released it instead. And since we mentioned this earlier, Kevin Smith wrote a lengthy multi-part blog detailing Jason Mewes' battle with drugs. In it, he describes how Mewes was using heroin during the filming of Dogma, with specific reference to the scene outside movies where the apostle is telling Bethany, Silent Bob, and Jay his life story. Mewes kept nodding off during takes where he wasn't in the shot, earning himself a telling off by Smith. Later during the scene in the bar, all sitting down, and there's scenes where there's a wide shot, and I guess Jason Mewes doesn't know that he's on screen, and he can be seen clearly nodding because they forgot to take him out of the wide shot. But it should be noted that Jason Mewes is completely clean and sober today.
Yeah,
which is good.
He beat the battle.
As far as where everyone is, guys, I think you gotta know where everyone. We usually tell you what people are up to after.
If you're not up to date on that, then
if you don't know where Ben Affleck is, he's Mr. Jennifer Lopez. Good for him.
Yep.
Him and Matt Damon actually own a new company together where they're going to be making different projects that are kind of geared toward theatrical and streaming. As Ben Affleck said, he kind of saw the writing on the wall, like when COVID shut everything down. He wants to be able to create different projects, and why not do it with your best friend
as well?
And one of those projects is one that's coming out in April called Air. It was already getting good reviews. Ben Affleck directed it. Damon is starring in it, and it has a big ensemble cast, almost similar to this one. It's a pretty stacked cast.
Yeah, huge.
Salma Hayek also still acting. Chris Rock, well, you saw what happened with him last year and at the Oscars. He's doing pretty well for himself. He waited a whole year to talk about that until he got a lot of money from Netflix to do a stand-up special and discuss it then. Linda Fiorentino, I don't know, actually. She hasn't really done a lot since this movie. I forgot that she was in Men in Black, though, in 1997.
Yeah, she was good in that.
Yeah, she was good in that. She has actually just read something earlier. This wrote an article about how she's was labeled unfairly as someone that's not easy to work with. But I don't know, when there's multiple stories about you not being easy to work with, then
yeah, that's tough.
It makes you wonder if they're true or not. And Alanis Morissette still touring, still singing. I'm trying to pick other people from the cast, but yeah, everyone is still actively working. Unfortunately, Alan Rickman passed away.
George
Carlin, yeah. Alan Rickman passed away in 2016. I think that is still a big loss for like a lot of people.
Wow, 2016 has really been that long. That's crazy.
It's really crazy. Then George Carlin passed away in 2008. Also, really, I always think of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure every time I think of George Carlin because he's in that and it's hilarious. And Kevin Smith, I know we kind of talked about it. His posts Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back stuff is, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because I think we kind of talked about the whole quantity versus quality thing when we were talking about Tarantino yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of fell victim to that eventually. And it's unfortunate because I think he's a very good writer and very intuitive writer. I just haven't been a fan of like anything after Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah.
And I know that now he writes stuff basically for his fans, and that's great. And I know people that love
Kevin Smith.
Love him no matter what. But yeah, once he started doing like Jersey Girl and Cop Out, and
he even hates Cop Out.
Yeah, he even hates Cop Out. Yeah, I think he does. He also did a lot of directing with TV. I know he did some stuff with The Flash and like some of the Arrowverse stuff. He's a very big comic book nerd in the best way possible. And then also after his heart attack, his whole perspective on life really changed after that. really I mean, him and Ben Affleck had a falling out like a long time ago. They reconnected after that. They really close again. So there's there's some good news that kind of came after all of that
After
stuff.
a horrible instance, yeah.
You know, I would I want to throw it to people listening, like how you guys feel about his career post Dogma, because I think it'd
Yeah,
be,
definitely.
because like we mentioned earlier, independent film director that came out of the gate with some really good
Heavy hitters.
movies, heavy hitters, and then not saying that he didn't have any more of that in him. I just I would love to hear what you guys think of why, if you believe he fell off, why he fell off. And before we get to our questions, any final thoughts on Dogma?
No, I think it's a great representation, satirical comedy on Catholicism and religion. So it's just one of those that you definitely have to check it out if you haven't seen it.
Yep, and not as offensive as probably you think it is. I mean,
It is vulgar though.
It is vulgar, but I think the stuff it says about the Catholic Church isn't, especially today. I mean, I think today people like look at this and be like, "Oh, there's more truth to this now than."
Definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely one that you guys should seek out. Like I said, you can either buy a really expensive physical copy of it if you can find it, or
YouTube is easy.
watch it on YouTube, like Owen. All right, we're here at the point where we have questions from guys. I have them here. Deep dive movies with us, so we want you to deep dive and get to know us as people. As always, one for me, one for Owen, one for both of us. We'll give Owen his first. Make sure I just have your Twitter handle right, because or Instagram, because some of you have very unique, very
good
unique.
Recently.
All right, at the Burkinator, I think that's what it's
okay.
It is. Wants to know from Owen. Okay, I know that you're the casual voice on the podcast and don't work in the industry, but you articulate your points really well. Have you ever considered writing? And if not, do you have any other passions outside of talking about movies? It's a pretty good question.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Very insightful. Well, I haven't ever thought about writing. First of all, I appreciate that. Thanks for that. I have some good, insightful points to bring. I have ideas for certain scenes sometimes that come into my head. I have a scene that I wrote notes app that is about nothing really. It's just something that I thought of that I thought was kind of interesting. I've never pursued anything in terms of writing. My passions mostly include a lot of physical activity and music. I love to have written a couple songs and so I have some passions in terms of that. But yeah, I mean, I might have to take some things up, get some notes from Gaius. Maybe I'll turn to some freelance writing gigs after that compliment, because that is
you're right.
Yeah, that feels good to hear.
That's cool.
And yeah, I really appreciate that. I think that don't think I have enough credibility or know how to maybe actually start to write something. I feel like I need a little bit of somewhat experience in order to get there. I'm not really sure where I would start, but could be kind of fun to maybe write some stuff down the road. So that's
I mean,
that's what I'd say.
How we kind of got here a little bit with the podcast is he watched No Country for Old Men and wrote his thoughts down on his in his iPhone notes and read that to me. This was a long time ago, and it was just kind of stream of consciousness.
I also wrote a review for I wrote a what did I wrote a review for Austin Powers. Let's see, which ones did I? Gosh, okay, so I wrote a review for The Soloist, which is Robert Downey Jr. and
I haven't seen that in forever.
Jamie Foxx. I wrote a review for American Animals. Let's see, Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, No Country for Old Men, True Detective season 1.
So guys, he doesn't write. He doesn't write that much, but he just read I wrote one for this and this.
I wrote one for Flight. I wrote one for Zach and Miri Make a Porno. Yeah, so those are the ones that I've written reviews for. Maybe we'll throw something up on the on the page. We'll see.
And I don't know if we would call this a passion, guys, but he can cook. So that is a pretty good. That's a talent that a lot of people.
It is definitely a passion. I'll throw it out there. I do like to cook.
So I know you guys will probably never get to eat anything that he makes, but just kind of know that that's another one, I guess, you can kind of throw in there as well.
Add to the repertoire.
All right. At Real Matt C on Twitter for me. You see what you pulled up here? Alrighty. We're still waiting on you to do a really, really scary movie. When are you gonna do a really, really scary movie for your deep dive? I don't
Nice.
know. Hey, you know what? There, I will, and I think we said a long time ago. I want to pick a really scary one, and you know what? We'll watch it together, and I will report back on how scared one actually got.
I get.
uh, uh, Still thinking, but I do like the idea of me picking stuff that's not that because I know everyone knows I like scary movies.
Hey, like I've said before, you can pick whatever you want,
I
man.
know, I know, I know.
And guess what?
Eventually,
I have to watch it, so you can take that into account.
that's true. You have no choice. And oh, you picked one first. It was a horror comedy, but you know, I will eventually. I think I am kind of overthinking like which one it should be and like how scary it should be because like I want it to be I want it to be legit. I don't want it to
Yeah,
just just throw like a slasher movie your way. But okay, yeah,
be anything.
maybe soon, guys. Let's see at Hot Vanna Nights on Twitter. For
Van
both of us,
Nights.
at both of us. Are you guys ever going to have guests on your deep dive episodes? I know this kind of was brought up in the beginning when we first started. I personally still think it's too early. I'm not opposed to the idea.
Yeah, I think that we're still finding like this is number 7, so I want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
definitely want to get some more in. But yeah, definitely not opposed to the idea. I'd love to have Jackson on one.
I think he would
So
be first out of anyone.
he'll definitely be the first one. But after
Yeah,
that, then the only downside of that is we'd have to maybe release like what we're watching first and then kind of ask
right,
who wants to be on. So that would
right,
be kind of an interesting avenue to
right.
navigate. But besides that, I think that I definitely want to get some other people on and hear some of their insights and have
Yeah,
you guys talk with us because that would be great.
I think so too. I think what would make Jackson different is that we could tell him, no matter whose week it was, like this is what we're gonna watch,
Yeah,
and he would watch it. It comes to reaching out to beyond that. I think yeah, you're right. It's hard. We'd have to figure it out, but I don't mind the idea of doing it because I love having guests on. But yeah, you're right. It is only episode 7, and I think we still got a little bit to go.
got a little
Even
ways.
even though I think we have our footing on it, like I think
Oh
we've
yeah,
done
definitely.
pretty well. But
We're
like
good. We're good.
yeah,
But
but
this
like
I'm enjoying it though. I'm enjoying it just us
yeah,
three.
I'm enjoying that too. And it also be really interesting to how we decide, like, all right, well, whose week is getting a guess? Like, want it from you
Yeah,
or do you want it from me?
exactly.
Like,
And
um,
also, who do they agree with? Like, do they think that
yeah,
like whose opinion is right?
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
agreed. Yeah. Well, it'll come like eventually, and we have a lot of time, guys. So plenty
Lots
of
of
time to
time.
look that up. But yeah, glad we agreed on this one. I mean, this was a fun
Yeah,
chat.
love it.
Uh,
Love it.
I love this movie, a fun one. Everyone, yeah, try to rediscover it. Especially, I mean, I hope that Kevin Smith one day is able to get the rights back to this and
I do too.
get it properly out
Once
to like.
Weinstein is dead and underneath the
That's
ground,
basically like I fully agree with him not wanting to give the guy money
I think it would just
at
be
this
it's
point.
disrespectful to pay for your own creation.
Yeah,
Sucks.
yeah. So but like I said, you can find it on YouTube or you can buy a really expensive copy of it and kind of rediscover my personal favorite of his films.
And
And
just
yeah,
Matt Damon and Ben Affleck just having fun and being good actors together
yeah.
early on.
I don't want to say that was my biggest takeaway because this is a smart movie, but one of the things I really grasped on this time was like forgetting how fun they were in the early part of their career.
Hmm.
When they were like, right after Good Will Hunting, it was this. Matt Damon had Rounders, like pretty much after Will Hunting.
Yeah.
Like we were all like, it's fun to see them kind of still fresh, I guess,
Yeah.
and still probably still excited about aspects of the industry. So
Yeah.
that
No,
you can
100%.
tell. Yeah, it'll be something for you guys all to
Definitely check it
enjoy.
out. YouTube, it's easy. Just go watch it.
Yeah. Well, I'll link it. I'll link the one I found, and you guys I'm sure you'll find it on YouTube anyway. But
Search
just again,
Dogma. It's
just
first one
search
that comes
Dog.
up.
It's
Yeah.
the first one that comes up. Yeah, not that hard. All right, send us on out, Owen.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you for tuning into Back to the Blockbuster Presents Deep Dives with Owen and Gaius. This is our favorite thing to do. Watch movies and talk about them in excess. And it is just fun to just kind of just keep throwing around ideas. We have so many movies that we're As we talk about these things, all these movies are coming up that we want to continue to talk about, because some of them, like we say, might be sleepers, might be ones that are good to find. So hopefully you guys have found some good points and interesting things that we've mentioned, and kind of rediscovered some movies that you guys might not have seen for a little while. Also to kind of think about them in a different way. This is one that I like. I think it's, like Gaius said, very smart movie. So it's fun to kind of reimagine it and look at it in a satirical way. But yeah, you can listen to us anywhere you can find podcasts. I'm a Spotify guy. Gaius, I don't know which podcast.
Usually Apple.
Apple, classic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's that. Just anywhere basic. Just anywhere you listen to podcasts. Huge shout out to Playlist. I know they're coming out with some good stuff soon, so stay tuned for that. Been a great partner of ours, and we love Playlists. So continue to keep listening. We're hoping to get to number one on Good Pods. We have 2 episodes coming out this week, so listen to the regular show. I'm on it again. So just keep on tuning in. And guys, we have a lot more stuff coming out, so stay tuned. Gaius has his pick coming up. Finally.
Yeah. Finally, it'll be mine. And you know what? I'm gonna end on this note too. One of the guys that listens to the show, I thought was really cool that he says that when he finds out what movie we're gonna do, like he goes back first and rewatches it and then listens to our episode talking about it.
Nice.
So I thought that was he was like, I'd like to like visit it first and then kind of see like if I agree with your point. Right. So that's it's little things like that matter. So thank you guys so much for saying that and
engaged.
I don't know, being engaged and like I guess like having us be people that like put something out there that you want to revisit, that you're like, all right, I want to like familiar with that again. So it's great.
It's great, guys. Keep tuning in. We got more stuff coming your way.
All right. Peace out.